And the Pool of Siloam, you will see it. We were here in the 90s when they first found it. They thought it was someplace else, and they found it on that side. I'll tell you that story later tonight. But it says, then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, Behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. Also, also it is time past when Saul was king over us. There wasn't he that had us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord said to thee, Thou shalt feed thy people, Israel, and they shall be a captain over Israel. To David. So all the elders of Israel came to the king of Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and he anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old, by the way. I'm going to go down. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, the same as the city of David. And David said on that day, Whosoever getteth up on the gutter, and smites the Jebusite, and the lame, and the blind, and they that are halt of David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Therefore they said, the blind and the lame shall not come into thy house. So it's forbidden to come into the house. Now, Wally told you about Hezekiah, he told you about David, and he told you about Sennacherib. Sennacherib was someone in Hezekiah's time that surrounded the city from Assyria. And they were so impoverished, they surrounded the city so impoverished, that the Bible says they ate dove's dung. And so there were lepers that weren't being able to be fed, and the angels came down. Sennacherib went back and never conquered the city. This is the stronghold. When you were at the map of the city, the model of the city, this is where it starts all the way up. This all should be coming together for you. Also, when you read your Old Testament anymore, some people tell me all the time, oh, the Old Testament's boring. This is the actual history of these people coming. So you may want to read the Old Testament with a different light, knowing that you've been in the city, David.
Pastor just read that the city of David, the stronghold, is called Zion. Yeah. Zion in Hebrew could have two meanings. Either from the word Siyah, that means wilderness, we're not in the wilderness here, and the other meaning is stronghold. Yep. So this is the stronghold. And the 1 Samuel 24 says, then Saul went home to Gibeah, and David went to the stronghold. I said probably Masada, and probably here. He came back here. And the name of both is Zion. So this is the beginning. You know, in the beginning, Zion was given to this little land here, because there was nothing around. Then, with the expansion of the city, that mountain, you know, behind us, you know, to my left now, up, became to be called Zion. Later on, the whole city is called, we are marching up to Zion, Zion, the city of God. The whole city is called Zion. Today, all the country is called Zion, the Zionist movement.
Yeah. People returning, we're the Zionists.
Absolutely. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is, with you know, when David was dying, he called, you know, his aides and tell them, go with my son Solomon and anoint him down at the Gihon spring. So he was anointed king down at the spring Gihon by Nathan the prophet and Zadok the priest. The quest. His granddaughter, by the name of Elat, she kept digging here. And she dug also in the southern wall excavations, which we visited yesterday. When she came in here, this area had been studied before her. By whom? By a world-renowned British archaeologist, Kathleen Kenyon. This is referred to as Area H. Area H. In Area H, Kathleen Kenyon says that she found some, but there's no mention of David. She says we found a monumental building. Now, what kind of building? Last night I was reading, when I was talking to Pastor Mark, I was reading about that. The Bible doesn't mention even palace. It says house. But usually kings live in palaces, not houses. Are you with me? And this is what made this Elat Mazar think of the palace. And because this structure is magnificent, is beautiful, that made her go much higher than ordinary houses. And she says this must have been the palace of King David, and they found that stone like that. That's a copy. It's not the same stone. All right? Because they won't leave it like this. And well, but she talked to her grandfather Benjamin Mazar before he died. Okay? She says, I'm not thinking like Kathleen Kenyon, just like monumental building. I think this must have been King David's palace. Well, if this was where David was, then this is where he was buried. He is the only one we know that was buried inside town. So this is the Zion that was known, you know, for the people in King David's time and sometime later. As to the, did we visit the upper room? Yes. Did we visit St. Peter in Galicanto's house? Yes. Both are on Zion. And this is what made one of the Muslim scholars say, David is buried up there. No way. The Bible, you know, my first reference is the Bible. The Bible says when he died, he was buried with his fathers in his city, Zion. And Zion means stronghold. Why stronghold? It's separated at one side by the Kidron, on the other side by the cheesemakers. So, this is probably where, also where Abraham was. And that is why I'm going to take you to that Canaanite tunnel and the Canaanite Warren Shaft. The Warren Shaft, that, you know, we are supposed to be there at 9 o'clock. It was dug by the Canaanites to reach the water without the need to go all the way down, get water and up. You know what it is like, you know, for women. Usually it was the job of women to carry jars on their heads and bring up here. It's difficult. So they dug that shaft. You know, unfortunately, they missed the water by like some distance. So when Abraham came here, he must have seen that shaft. But another thing that is important to me is that today, that shaft was excavated by Warren in 1867. And he believes, and I do believe, and you know, others believe, that that was the shaft used by the warriors like Joab, the fighters of King David, to take Jebus. He says those that don't love the Jebusites should take the city, because on the walls of the city at that time, there was a wall around Jerusalem, around Jebus. And the Jebusites put the lame, the blind, the sick, the lepers, as a curse against all invaders. This was followed at that time and before. I'm talking 3,000 years ago. There is they found in Tel El Amarna in Egypt a book that's called the Book of Excavation, which means they used to curse any place they wanted to take. May God destroy you. Please God, let that place burn. You know, they found that book. And so here, David didn't want to use that. See, those that love me should kill those people sitting on the wall and take the city, and it was taken. The shaft is probably this diameter. But I tell you, you might ask, well, how did they come up here? Was there a rope? I don't know. There was a rope, yes. Was there a ladder? I doubt it, but I think. Look, when I was growing up, I was probably 8 years, you know, my mother I did something wrong, my mother here we don't have, you know, don't talk to me, you know, they punished us physically.
Me too.
And because, yeah, I wanted to run, I could never bear anybody in the world, even my parents, to touch me. I preferred to leave house rather than my brother. He said, okay, I'll be punished, so what, they spanked me, and then I sleep on warm beds, and, you know, I was the opposite. So we lived in a house that has a corridor this wide. I put one foot here, the other foot here, and I went up. My mother says, come down. I say, no, you come up. And you know, I waited up there for half an hour till she cooled down, and then I came and say, I'm sorry. She said, no. So this is probably what the warriors of David did.
Shimmy down.
Yeah. It's just after David and Solomon, this was, of course, the Solomonic place, capital. After him, Rehoboam remained here until Hezekiah. The Assyrians, after taking Lachish, Sennacherib threatened to take, the Assyrian general, he threatened to take Jerusalem, and he started coming here. The spring of water, the Gihon spring, where you will begin walking in the wet tunnel, was outside town, outside the walls. He said to himself, if the Assyrians get hold of the water, everybody inside, everybody that lived in here would die of thirst. So he ordered 2 teams of diggers. One started at the spring, the other one at the pool of this. You will be walking all along it if you walk the wet tunnel. You'll be lucky and blessed. And but God did not want anything bad to happen to Jerusalem, and he sent his angels to kill thousands of those Syrian soldiers, and they had to go back home. But until recently, we used to refer to the cistern that was here. They are working now in Area G. That is Area G, where you are Area H. We used to say that is Jeremiah. That is Jeremiah's cistern. Why? You know Jeremiah? I have a problem with this Jeremiah. I mean, because he warned he told the king of Jerusalem, you have to give up to the Babylonian king. He was accused of treason, and he was dropped in that cistern until that Cushite person, you know, the black man African, he talked to the king and says, bring him up, I'll see what's happening here. And he went home and he brought those torn clothes and tied them like a rope, and he brought him up here. But what we used to refer to as Jeremiah's cistern is not true at all. It was proved recently that it is medieval period, not Jeremiah's period. So, you know, this is in short, very much in short. I mean, I can spend the whole day here, but we have no time to do it. And this is how what Jerusalem was like: Salem, Jebus, city of David, Abraham, and finally Jesus. He's, you know, John 9. It talks about the Lord spitting on the ground, making clay of the spittle, and putting on the eyes of the blind man, and he said, "Go and wash at the pool of Siloam." Siloam is the Hebrew word of Shiloach. Shiloach means to send. The water is sent in that pool from the spring to that pool. That is why the Arabs call their town there Silwan. That keeps the old biblical name of Shiloh. Any questions?
I read.
Pastor? Yeah, sure.
Okay.